Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra Sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. They told me the building was dead, power disconnected, programs scrubbed, signatures wiped. But when the service elevator groaned up from the sub-basement and exhaled stale, metallic air across my face, the breath smelled warm. 4 hours, Morales said through the gate, not looking at me. Test the auto-defense. Verify emergency failovers. Log anomalies. Don't freelance. I never freelance, I said. Morales slid a laminated card between the bars like a priest passing a sacrament. It wasn't the standard safety sheet. It was grimy at the corners, thumbed 100 times, and the ink had bled in places like the words were sweating. Rules for after hours. Sector P7, RET. Do not look directly at the camera feeds after 0, 0, 0, 0. Scan, with peripheral vision, only. If the alarm reads containment breach, hide from the light, not the dark. If the intercom addresses you by name, it is not your supervisor. Do not answer. Floors 3 and 5 are mirrored on emergency power. Only use stairwell C. Replace the card where you found it when you're done. Who wrote these? I asked. Morales tapped his knuckles twice against the gate. Clock starts now, Rains. The gate clanged shut. The elevator swallowed me, humming down into a throat of concrete and history. I used to tell myself I did this because it paid like a heist with less prison time, but that was a lie. I did it because places like P7 still hummed when they were supposed to be silent, and I needed to know why. Sub B3 looked like an architect's sketch abandoned midway. Clean lines, cables tucked into conduits, glossy floors never scuffed by civilian shoes. The ops post was a coffin of glass and steel overlooking a corridor labeled Viral Vector Storage in a font that pretended it wasn't interesting. Power was supposedly limited to a skeleton grid, enough to keep my meters and the emergency lighting on a low amber simmer. It was too much light for a dead place. I set down my Pelican case, tethered my tablet to the system bus, and watched the diagnostics crawl. Temperature was 2 degrees warmer than spec. Airflow, inconsistent. Cameras, 36 online, 8 asleep. Though no one had told me this system did sleep states. I pulled the laminated card from my pocket and laid it where I could feel its weight with my wrist. A superstition, or an anchor. Begin baseline sweep, I said into my recorder. Rains, contractor, badge 64,152, initiating. 0006, plenty of time before midnight. On camera 1, the corridor outside the ops post looked normal. 2 showed an empty loading bay, except for a smear of something dark near a drain. I kept moving. 3, a glass-walled lab lined with stainless fridges. 4, a long hall with doors numbered C31 to C52. 5, the elevator lobby I'd just left. On 7, I caught a flicker at the top left corner. A reflection? An artifact? My peripheral vision snagged on it and my eyes started to slide toward the screen before I stopped, pulse kicking. Peripheral only, after midnight. Not yet. But the card had already taught me a reflex. I left the cameras and walked the corridor. The building had a sound I can only describe as listening back. Like when someone behind a door has their ear pressed to the wood. It lives in the resonance, the way your footsteps paint the space, and something invisible paints a second coat right on top. At the junction, I paused. Stairwells to the left, elevators dead ahead. The plaque read, Stairwell / Stairwell C, with arrows diverging. I turned right, toward C. On the landing between sub B3 and sub B2, someone had scratched a tic-tac-toe grid into the paint with a key, There were X's and O's like a conversation interrupted. The O's won. I stepped over it like it might trip me. At sub B2, the emergency lights had dimmed a notch, as if the building were conserving breath. The door to floor 3, no, sub B1 by the map, but the stair plaques insisted 3, was sealed with a thumbprint reader. The glass displayed power lockout, until my proximity badge pinged the reader, and it lazily revised itself to, "Welcome, Tech-Ra," and then stuttered into static. I backed away, and the word returned to lockout with a sigh. "Mirrored floors," I murmured, glancing at the rules. It wasn't about reflection. It never was. Mirrored meant the system would present you with a place that looked like another place. Call it a test, or bait. Back at the ops post, midnight approached like a train. No matter how slowly it came, it would arrive at speed. I set my watch to tick the last minute with haptic taps. The hum deepened. On my tablet, the camera grid politely blinked to a single feed without my ask. The timestamp clicked from 23:59:58 to 23:59:59 and then 0:00:0:0. Every camera went black except the one pointed directly down at the ops post, as if something sat on the ceiling looking through a pupil. Rule 1. Do not look directly at the camera feeds after midnight. I kept my eyes on the edge of the screen, catching only the shape of myself reflected. Head down, shoulders tense, a figure behind me. I flinched and turned. No one. The chair I hadn't used rocked once. Slowly, as if someone had been sitting and just stood up to let me see the imprint. The intercom crackled. "Rains," a woman's voice said, annoyed. "Status. Morales." It sounded like Morales. It had her bored, sandpaper dry tone, even the way she clipped my name short like it owed her money. Rule 3. If the intercom addresses you by name, it is not your supervisor. I pressed my lips together and said nothing. The recorder in my pocket warmed, as if embarrassed for me. "Rains," the voice repeated, warmer now, coaxing. "If you're ignoring me for the ritual, it's adorable, but you still have to check in. Tell me what you're seeing." I stepped to the console and killed the intercom with a long press on the hardware switch. The line hissed like a rattlesnake and went dead. Then the alarm panel lit up with a gentle, almost apologetic chime. Containment breach. Lab C4. The corridor outside the glass-walled lab, Camera 3, bloomed to life on its own, the feed fading up from black like a curtain raised. A soft white wash of light ramped on in the hall, motion sensors doing their job, except they were supposed to be on my manual override only. Inside the lab, something moved behind the stainless fridges, the kind of movement that's more pressure than form, the way hot air lifts a mirage off asphalt. Rule 2. If the alarm reads containment breach, hide from the light, not the dark. Light in a breach isn't illumination, it's a net. The ops post was bright. The hall was bright. The only dark close enough to reach without crossing lit space was the maintenance crawl under the console. I slid down, pulled open the panel and wriggled into a slot full of dust and cold metal ribs. The emergency lighting through the glass made the floor glow like a stage. I tucked the laminated card under my palm as if that alone could ground me. On the monitor above me, the camera feed still glowed. I watched indirectly, my eyes on the edge of the screen, not the center. The white wash moved down the hall, pooling, feeling its way. The motion sensors tripped in sequence like footsteps you hear but can't parse. In the lab, a fridge door eased open against its seal. A strip of light slid over the floor and stopped at the threshold. The air in the corridor rippled. Condensation purled along the baseboard and then fled, as if sucked into a lung. The intercom popped again even though I'd killed it at the switch. A voice I hadn't heard since I was 13 whispered, "Evan?" My father. Dead 14 years. He only called me Evan when he wanted me to come closer. I kept my breathing shallow. My hand shook against the rule card. The light pressed against the ops post glass and stalled, as if feeling for a seam. It found the door, poured around the edges like milk. The handle twitched, metal creaking a fraction. Then, quiet. The hum receded a notch. The white in the corridor thinned and drew back toward Lab C4 like a tide accepting its boundary. I didn't move. 5 full minutes. 10. My watch vibrated at 0011 and I decided that was enough to call it survived. I slid out, letting the panel rest against my hip so it wouldn't clang. The card stuck to my palm with sweat. On the console, a new line of text had appeared at the bottom of the rules list, in the same bleeding ink. Do not leave anything behind. I looked at the desk where I'd set my Pelican case. Its latch was open. The case was empty. The Pelican case wasn't supposed to open by itself. The latches were industrial-grade steel with biometric locks. I hadn't keyed in my print or voice, yet it sat there wide open like a gaping wound, and every tool inside, thermal meter, drone, signal wand, tablet backup, was gone. All that remained was a faint smear across the interior foam. Something oily, the color of gasoline under a streetlight. I shut the case slowly. "Morales," I whispered, knowing full well I wouldn't get her. "You better be listening." No answer. The intercom stayed dead, a polite silence. The hum of the building shifted again, dropping an octave. The air felt thicker, like humidity with a pulse. I picked up the rule card. The ink on Rule 6 hadn't just been written. It was still drying. The wet glisten of fresh pen strokes shimmered faintly in the amber light. Do not leave anything behind. Whatever took my equipment wasn't just rummaging. It was enforcing. The corridor leading toward Lab C4 looked washed clean. The slick trail of light that had crawled there earlier was gone. But the floor panels, smooth epoxy, had warped in spots, as if something hot had pressed through from beneath. Like breath-fogging glass except under your feet. The containment door to C4 was half open. I could see the edges of stainless tables and racks of sealed canisters labeled in military shorthand. Biological? Chemical? Maybe both. "All right, Rains," I muttered. "Document, test, verify." That's what they paid me for. Inside the lab, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. My breath fogged instantly. Every fridge door stood open now, perfectly symmetrical. Empty shelves. Frost crawled up the walls and gathered in branching patterns that looked disturbingly like veins. In the far corner, one canister remained sealed, tagged BioVector, B07-beta-null. Its containment light pulsed weakly. Green, yellow, like a heartbeat learning to sync again. Then my radio crackled. Not the intercom, my personal radio, the one synced to Morales' line. "Rains, confirm inventory status." Her voice this time sounded tired, unprocessed, real. I pressed transmit. "Morales, I'm on sub B3. Lab C4 shows breach containment relocked, but something's wrong with the temperature control and..." Static devoured my words. Then a whisper bled through the distortion. "Rains, why did you leave it open?" I froze. "Leave what open?" "The door." I turned toward the hall. The lab door was open. I could see the corridor beyond, flooded with faint amber glow. But as I watched, the door began to close itself, smoothly, quietly, until only a sliver of light remained. Then, before it sealed shut, a shadow crossed the threshold. Not a shadow. Mine. Except I was standing still. The light flickered, then died entirely. Emergency red filled the room, pulsing every 2 seconds. I turned toward the mirrored fridge doors and saw, barely, a shape standing where my reflection should have been. It was taller, thinner, the proportions just wrong enough to make my stomach drop. When I stepped left, it didn't mirror me. It tilted its head instead, like it was studying the difference, then it smiled. My smile. Only too wide. Every light in the room stuttered at once. The red pulses doubled tempo. My earpiece buzzed again. A low rhythmic click, like Morse code. I counted. N? I murmured. Nonsense. Unless it was an English code. I remembered something Morales said when I took the job. These facilities predate half the safety standards we use now. Their systems weren't built to protect people. They were built to protect what's inside. Maybe that code wasn't for me at all. Maybe it was for it. I stepped backward toward the exit. The reflection didn't. It stayed perfectly still as the red light bled across its teeth. Then, the room shook. The containment alarm screeched back to life, filling the air with that high, mechanical shriek that always means one thing in these old bunkers. The system is overriding human control. I sprinted for the door. The shadow behind me moved faster, slipping along the mirrored walls like oil catching wind. The door refused to open. I slammed my hand on the manual latch. Nothing. I could feel heat building through the metal as the locking mechanism engaged from the outside. Then a voice echoed through the ventilation grates. My voice. Testing sequence initiated. Subject contained. Observation in progress. I backed into the center of the room, heart pounding so loud I could feel it in my teeth. No, I hissed. I didn't start anything. The reflection stepped closer. Its hand rose slowly, touching the glass from the other side. Frost webbed out under its fingers. Then, like a door being unlocked in reverse, something clicked inside me. When the lights went out completely, I could still see it. The outline glowed faintly, white edges in a black room like chalk around a body. Then its face came forward and whispered through the glass. 7. I blinked. The laminated card in my hand had changed again. When it says your number, stop counting. The door to Lab C4 burst open on its own, slamming against the wall hard enough to crack the hinges. A wind like a vacuum roared through, sucking papers, frost, and the stench of antiseptic into the corridor beyond. The shadow was gone, but so was my reflection. I stumbled out into the hallway, clutching the rule card. It was warm again, pulsing faintly with my heartbeat. The cameras along the ceiling turned one by one, tracking me like eyes. Down the corridor, the elevator doors slid open. Inside waited the empty Pelican case, closed, latched, spotless. And sitting on top of it, neatly centered, was my reflection's ID badge. Badge 64,152. A name, Evan Rains. Duplicate clearance. Status, active containment. Morales, I whispered into the dead radio. If you can hear me, tell me what's in C4. The radio hissed. You are. The elevator shouldn't have opened for me. I hadn't called it. Yet there it was. Doors wide, light spilling out in that sterile, humming way old fluorescents do when they're pretending to be safe. The Pelican case sat in the middle like a baited trap. My reflection's badge was still resting on top. It looked identical to mine. Same photo, same barcode. But where my ID was dull and scratched from years of contract work, this one gleamed as if it had just been printed. Evan Rains, duplicate clearance. The term duplicate clearance didn't exist in my contracts, not in any I'd signed. I circled the elevator like it was a live wire. You want me to pick it up? I said to no one in particular. You want me to follow? The building hummed back, deep and resonant, a low note I could feel in my teeth. The laminated rule card grew warm in my pocket. I pulled it out. The ink still shimmered faintly, and another fresh line had appeared beneath Rule 7. If you see your badge twice, only one belongs to you. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I muttered. That tracks. I knelt, reached toward the duplicate badge, and the elevator doors snapped shut, missing my fingers by half an inch. The panel above the doors flickered from B3 to B2, then B1, then back down again, cycling like it couldn't decide which floor existed. Inside the sealed car, through the narrow window slit, I could see movement, shadows pacing back and forth. Not human silhouettes exactly, more like outlines made of static. The lights above the elevator began blinking in rhythm. 3 short flashes, 1 long. Pause. Repeat. I knew that signal. Emergency override from an upper terminal. Someone or something was controlling the car. I turned and ran for the stairwell. Every step down echoed like I was being followed. When I reached sub B4, the signage changed from white on blue to yellow stenciling on gray concrete. Restricted/clearance red. Red level meant sealed indefinitely. Nothing down here should have had power. The door was unlocked. Inside, rows of containment pods lined both walls. Cylindrical frosted glass coffins wired with tubes and readouts still blinking faint green life. Some pods were empty, others weren't. Each pod's label read Project Echo Reigns, followed by a sequence number 01, 02, 03. My stomach dropped when I reached 05. The body inside twitched. It was me. I stumbled backward, hit the metal rail, and almost dropped the rule card. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't tell if it was fear or adrenaline or both. The intercom above the pods came alive with a hiss. "Evan, please don't panic. That one didn't survive long. The others are improving." The voice wasn't Morales. It was mine. Warmer, steadier, older. "The tests aren't for the systems. They're for us. For the versions of us that remember versions," I whispered. "Every security specialist who enters P7 runs the same sequence. Every breach, every rule. The card isn't instruction. It's adaptation. You follow the rules. You evolve. You break them." A pod near the end of the row hissed open. Vapor spilled across the floor like low fog. "You get replaced." A hand emerged from the pod, my hand pale and trembling. The figure stepped out wearing the same clothes I had on, only cleaner, unstained by frost or dust. It, looked around, blinking slowly, then fixed on me with recognition. "You're slower than the last one," it said. The tone was calm, almost friendly. "But maybe you'll make it further." I took a step back. "Further where?" It smiled faintly, motioning to the ceiling. "Up." Before I could answer, alarms blared through the corridor. Red strobes erupted overhead. My duplicate turned toward the sound, unfazed. "The building's correcting itself," it said. "You triggered overlap." "Overlap of what? Of who?" The alarms distorted into something less mechanical, like breathing through metal lungs. The pod doors along both walls rattled, one after another, and the rule card burned hot enough in my hand to sear the edge. I looked down. Another new line had appeared, writing itself in as if an invisible pen was pressed against it. "If you meet yourself, one must return to containment." I raised my eyes just as my duplicate reached for me. "Sorry," he said. "I've been here longer." I swung the empty Pelican case. God knows how it followed me, hard across his arm. The crack echoed like a gunshot. He stumbled but didn't cry out, just looked disappointed. Then he lunged. We crashed into a pod, shattering the frosted glass. Cold vapor exploded around us, stinging my eyes and throat. His fingers clawed for my neck, grip strong but uncertain, like muscle memory out of sync. "Containment breach," the overhead voice droned again, mechanical and eerily calm. I drove my knee into his ribs, shoved him back into the broken pod, and slammed the case lid on his face. For a split second, our eyes met. Same color, same scar under the left brow, but his pupils pulsed faintly with light. He smiled as the glass resealed, locking him inside. The containment light over the pod turned green. I stumbled out of the chamber, coughing, and slammed the manual override on the stairwell door. The alarm tone dropped an octave, then silenced entirely. In the quiet, my radio clicked alive. "Evan," Morales said, voice raw and distant. "You're not supposed to go below B3. "Yeah, well," I rasped. "Someone forgot to lock the door." "Listen to me. If the duplicate's active, you need to finish the sequence. Get to the control core on B1 and input your ID. It'll force system priority. And if I don't? Then the building decides who gets to be you." The lights in the stairwell flickered once, twice, then turned blue. That color didn't exist in the facility's system map. The rule card vibrated in my hand. A 10th line bled onto the bottom, shaky but legible. "If the lights turn blue, the building has chosen. Run." I looked up. Every floor above me was glowing blue. And from somewhere far above, footsteps, my footsteps, started descending. The sound of those footsteps above me, perfectly in sync with my own, hit something primal in my chest. They weren't echoes. They were answers. I bolted down the stairwell, the metal steps ringing like an alarm clock set to panic. Blue light flooded from every floor above, humming, electrical, wrong. The air itself tasted ionized, sharp, metallic. The building wasn't just turning blue, it was awakening. When I reached sub B1, the door at the bottom was already open, light pulsing faintly from inside the corridor. The rule card in my hand buzzed once, a short, angry pulse of heat, like a warning I'd already ignored. I stepped through anyway. This floor wasn't a lab or an office. It was something else entirely. A cathedral built out of machines. A vast circular chamber filled with thick columns of cables that climbed up and vanished into a domed ceiling. In the center stood a black, glassy monolith the size of an elevator shaft, cables sprouting from it like roots from an old tree. Its face flickered with dim patterns that looked almost like eyes opening and closing. Stenciled across the base were the words, "Control Core, authorized access only." I pulled out my badge and scanned it against the terminal. Nothing. Then I remembered the second badge, the one from the elevator, the one that wasn't mine. I pulled it out carefully. The glossy surface reflected the blue light, bending it like oil. I swiped it against the reader. A soft tone chimed, then a voice echoed from all around the chamber. Calm, neutral, and disturbingly familiar. "Welcome back, Technician Rains. Sequence resuming. Please remain still for identity consolidation." Identity what? I muttered. The floor plates vibrated. The light shifted from blue to white. The monolith's reflection stretched across the glassy floor like liquid mercury. A second voice came through the speakers. Mine again, but different. Older, wiser, confident. The one I'd heard in the lower pods. "This is how it ends, Evan. You don't get to walk away. None of us do." I turned. My duplicate was standing in the entrance, clothes torn, face half lit in blue. He was smiling that calm, dead smile again. "You're supposed to be in containment," I said. He stepped closer. "Containment's for the ones who fail. You did better than most. That's why the Corps called you." "The Corps didn't call me," I said, backing away toward the terminal. "I came here to shut this down." He shook his head slowly. "You think you're the first one who said that?" The floor split with a heavy clang as the panels began to separate, revealing concentric rings of moving parts underneath, like gears of a clock turning after years of stillness. Energy pulsed through the cables, each vibration echoing like a heartbeat. The sound wasn't mechanical anymore, it was organic. "Identity consolidation in progress," said the neutral voice. "Primary instance detected. Secondary instance detected. Conflict status. Pending." "Conflict?" I barked. "What conflict?" My duplicate lunged. I dodged, grabbed a loose conduit and swung. It cracked against his shoulder, but he didn't flinch. He grabbed the metal rod and ripped it from my hands. "You think you're real because you remember pain," he hissed, eyes glowing faintly white. "But pain's just data here." He shoved me hard. I hit the floor beside the monolith, the impact rattling my teeth. Then the Corps spoke again. "Initiating merge protocol." Light erupted from the base of the structure, forming a column that split the room in two. The duplicate's face flickered like static. For a split second, I could see another version of him beneath the skin. Older, scorched, wearing a different uniform entirely. All the versions they'd made. The rule card slipped from my hand, skidding across the floor. I dove for it as my duplicate grabbed my collar. His grip was vice-like, eyes blazing with that same artificial calm. "You can't win this," he said. "The Corps chooses the dominant memory set. Whoever the system believes." As I looked at him, then the card. A new line was bleeding through, fresh ink forming under the 10th rule. "When the Corps chooses, lie." "All right," I said softly. Then let's see who it believes. I slammed my palm onto the reader and shouted, "Override. Technician Rains. Primary instance. System reboot authorization. Theta Echo 1. The duplicate froze. That's not... How do you... I wrote the protocol, I said. It wasn't true. But the core didn't know that. Verification in progress, it said. Authority confirmed. The duplicate's expression cracked for the first time. You lied to it. Yeah, I said. Rule 11. The core pulsed brighter, almost blinding. Its voice shifted. Slower now, deeper, uncertain. Multiple conflicts resolved. Secondary instance, archived. Primary instance, retained. The light from the floor surged upward, swallowing my duplicate whole. He screamed, not like a man dying, but like a recording being deleted. His outline dissolved into white static, then was gone. The chamber went silent. I fell to my knees, breathing hard, sweat freezing against my back. The core dimmed until it was only a faint heartbeat of light. The air smelled like ozone and something burned clean away. I picked up the rule card from the floor. The edges were scorched now, but one last line had appeared beneath Rule 11. When you win, leave before it remembers you lied. The elevator doors behind me dinged open, softly, invitingly. I limped toward it. My reflection stared back from the polished metal. For the first time since this nightmare started, it was mine. But as the doors began to close, I heard the core whisper, just once, low enough to feel it more than hear it. Welcome back, Technician Rains. The elevator began to rise, and I realized the light above me was turning blue again. The elevator hummed upward with a sound like static wrapped in steel. Each passing floor was marked by a flicker of blue light through the seams of the door. It shouldn't have been climbing. Sub B1 was the top of the underground facility. Above that should have been concrete, dirt, and 100 feet of rock. But the floor counter kept ticking. B0, L1, L2, L3. By L4, I stopped pretending this was any elevator built for humans. The rule card pulsed faintly in my pocket, still warm from the core's glow. I pulled it out. Rule 12 stared back at me in its burned edges. 12. When you win, leave before it remembers you lied. The building was remembering. Every few seconds, the blue lights pulsed brighter. Like the veins of something waking up, or worse, realizing I was still inside. At level 6, the elevator slowed. The doors parted with a sigh. What greeted me looked like a lobby, a wide atrium with shattered windows and overturned chairs. But the outside beyond the glass didn't make sense. There was light, yes, but not sunlight. A pale, sterile glow that didn't cast shadows. The horizon wasn't sky. It was a wall of static, flickering faintly like the world had been recorded on tape and someone forgot to finish rendering it. I stepped forward cautiously. The floor tiles clicked beneath my boots, dust puffing up in dry bursts. There were signs of life here once. A coffee mug fossilized in grime, a clipboard fused to the counter by rust. On the far wall hung a faded security poster. Remember, trust the system. The system trusts you. The "you" was crossed out in thick red marker, replaced with a single word. Again. The intercom crackled overhead, static. Then, faintly, the sound of my own breathing looped back at me, delayed by about 3 seconds. Then came a voice, soft and patient. Evan Rains. Report complete. Exit verification required. It wasn't Morales this time. It wasn't even the core. It sounded neutral, like a blank slate waiting to become something. Verification? I muttered. You've got everything you need. Please confirm completion of test protocol P7. I'm not confirming anything until I talk to Morales. Morales has been archived. The static flared so loud it made my teeth ache. Movement caught my eye near the exit. The glass doors at the far end of the atrium, the supposed way out, were covered in frost, fogged from the inside like someone had been breathing against them. Through the haze, I saw a figure standing just outside. Human shape, motionless, facing me. I swallowed. You've got to be kidding me. I took a few steps closer. The figure mirrored me, perfectly. Not like a reflection lagging behind, like it was waiting to sink. When I stopped, it did too. Then, one hand slowly lifted and pressed against the glass. I looked down at my own, and realized I was doing the same thing. The intercom hissed again. Final rule. I froze. The laminated card in my hand trembled. Ink began bleeding across its bottom edge, one last time. 13. When you reach the exit, check which side you're on. I blinked. What? Verification complete, the voice said. Identity consolidation pending. The figure behind the glass smiled, not maliciously, but with pity. Then, it mouthed something I couldn't hear, and I finally saw what was reflected in the glass around it. Not me. Rows of containment pods. A concrete ceiling with flickering lights. The real facility. The air left my lungs. I wasn't outside. I was looking in. The glass started to rattle. The frost cracked like breaking bones. I stumbled backward as the figure on the other side stepped closer, its features clearing through the haze. It was me. The same face, same clothes, but no color in the eyes. He raised my badge, his badge, to the scanner beside the door. A chime sounded. Exit granted. The door slid open with a mechanical hiss. Cold air poured in. My duplicate stepped through, calm, composed. I backed away as he stopped in front of me. He looked down at my rule card, then up at me. You followed them, he said softly. That's good. They were for you this time, I swallowed hard. You're not getting out. He smiled faintly. I already did. Then he pressed his badge to my chest. I felt it burn through the fabric, searing like a brand. Welcome back, Technician Rains, he whispered. The blue lights above flickered white. Every screen, every camera, every wall hummed with one repeated phrase in digital text. Identity verified. System resetting. When I looked back toward the glass, the world beyond had changed. The static sky flickered, then stabilized into gray daylight. A long road stretched toward a horizon I didn't recognize. Fresh air rushed in, cool and sharp. My duplicate was gone. Only his badge remained on the floor, cooling to black metal. The rule card disintegrated in my hand, turning to ash that blew away in the breeze. I stepped through the doorway, one slow, cautious foot over the threshold. For the first time in what felt like days, maybe years, the hum was gone. No core, no alarms, no rules. Then faintly, somewhere deep in the static behind me, the intercom whispered, "Testing, sequence, complete. Preparing next instance." And from the distance behind the glass, just before the door sealed, I saw another elevator open. Someone stepped out. It was me.